Not every dream is from God. It may feel vivid, it may feel powerful, it may even feel meaningful. But that doesn't make it true. And this is where many people get misled. They assume that because something feels spiritual, it must be from God. Because it came at night, because it felt intense, because it stirred emotion. But the Bible never tells you to follow every dream you have. It tells you to test it, to discern it, because not every vision is meant to guide you. Some are distractions, some are distortions, and some can quietly pull you away from truth. This is not about fear. This is about clarity. Because if you build your decisions on something that wasn't from God, you won't just be confused, you will be misdirected. And misdirection is dangerous, not because it feels wrong, but because it often feels right at the beginning. So today, we're not talking about rejecting dreams. We're talking about recognizing the ones you should never chase. 1. Dreams that contradict what God has already made clear. This is the first test, and it is the simplest. But many people ignore it. You have a dream, a vision, an impression that feels strong. But when you compare it to what God has already revealed, it doesn't align. It contradicts. And instead of rejecting it, you try to justify it. You say, maybe this is an exception. Maybe I'm misunderstanding. Maybe God is doing something different here. But God does not contradict himself. What he has made clear does not get overridden by something unclear. So if a dream leads you toward compromise, disobedience, confusion about what is right, it is not from God. No matter how intense it felt, no matter how real it seemed, because truth does not shift based on experience. Experience must be tested by truth, not the other way around. But here's the danger. When you prioritize what you felt over what is already established, you open yourself to deception, because now your standard is no longer truth, it's experience. And experience can be misleading. It can feel right and still be wrong. So hear this clearly. If something contradicts what God has already made clear, do not chase it. Do not interpret it. Do not try to make it fit. Reject it, because anything that leads you away from obedience is not guidance. It is distraction. 2. Dreams that feed your ego instead of humility. This one is subtle. Because it feels positive, it feels empowering. You see yourself elevated, recognized, set apart, people listening to you, admiring you, following you. And it feels like purpose. But underneath it, there is something else, pride. Because the focus is not on obedience, it's on elevation. It's not about serving. It's about being seen. And that is dangerous, because ego-driven visions do not lead to alignment. They lead to self-centered direction. The Bible consistently points toward humility, not self-exaltation, not self-promotion, but submission, dependence, alignment with something greater than yourself. So, when a dream consistently centers on your recognition, your status, your influence, without grounding in responsibility, obedience, and humility, you need to question it. Not every vision of greatness is from God. Some are reflections of your own desire to be elevated. And if you chase that, you will build something centered on yourself, not on truth. It sounds harsh, but it's necessary, because pride is not obvious when it feels like purpose. It hides in good language, in strong emotions, in convincing imagery, but its direction is different. It pulls you toward control, toward visibility, toward being the focus, instead of pointing you toward obedience. So be careful. Not every dream that makes you feel important is meant to be followed, because what feeds your ego will eventually distort your direction. 3. Dreams that create urgency without clarity. This is where many people make rush decisions, because the dream feels intense, immediate. It creates pressure, a sense that something needs to happen now, and you respond quickly. You change direction, you make decisions, you act without fully understanding, because you don't want to miss it. It sounds spiritual. It feels urgent. But here's the problem. God does not lead through confusion, and he does not rush you into decisions without clarity. Urgency without clarity creates impulsiveness, not obedience, because when something is truly from God, there is alignment, there is confirmation, there is consistency, not pressure, not panic, not a sense that you must act immediately or lose everything. That kind of urgency often leads to mistakes, because you're not acting from understanding. You're reacting to emotion, and emotion is not a reliable guide. So when a dream leaves you, confused, pressured, unclear about what to do not move quickly. Pause, because clarity matters more than speed, and decisions made in pressure often lead to regret. So do not chase what you don't fully understand, not because you're afraid, but because you're being wise. At this point, you can feel the shift. This is not about dismissing dreams. This is about discernment, because not every dream is guidance. Not every vision is direction, and not everything that feels spiritual is safe to follow. We've already uncovered 3 patterns: dreams that contradict truth, dreams that feed your ego, dreams that create urgency without clarity. Now we go deeper. Because the next 3 are more deceptive, not because they look wrong, but because they look almost right. 4. Dreams that pull you away from what you're already called to do. This is one of the most dangerous distractions, because it doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels like redirection. You're already on a path. You've been consistent. You've been building something with discipline. And then a dream comes, a new idea, a different direction, something that feels more exciting, more appealing. And suddenly, what you were doing starts to feel less important, less urgent, less meaningful. So you start considering a shift, not because what you were doing was wrong, but because something else feels better. This is how many people lose momentum, not through failure, but through distraction. Because not every new direction is a better direction, and not every shift is an upgrade. Sometimes, it's interruption. The Bible consistently shows something important. Consistency matters. Faithfulness matters. Staying aligned with what you've been given matters. So when a dream suddenly pulls you away from something you were already committed to, you need to test it. Because God does not build confusion into your direction. He does not constantly redirect you without reason. And He does not replace what is working with something unclear. But distraction will. Distraction always offers something that feels more exciting, more immediate, more appealing. But its purpose is simple: to pull you away from what actually matters. So be careful. Not every new vision is meant to replace your current path. Some are there to see if you will stay focused. Because if you keep shifting directions, you never build anything stable. You start over, again and again. And eventually, you lose progress without even realizing it. So do not abandon clarity for something that only feels exciting. Because consistency is what produces results. 5. Dreams that depend on circumstances instead of alignment. This one sounds logical. It feels reasonable. You have a dream, but it only works if certain things happen. If people respond a certain way, if opportunities open up instantly, if everything aligns perfectly around you. So, you start chasing it, waiting for the right conditions, adjusting your actions based on external factors, and slowly, your direction becomes unstable. Because it's not grounded in alignment, it's grounded in circumstance, and circumstances change constantly. So when your vision depends entirely on external validation, immediate results, perfect timing, ideal conditions, you are building something fragile. Because the moment conditions shift, your direction collapses. This is not how God leads. He leads through alignment, through consistency, through internal clarity that does not depend on external perfection. But when a dream is built on circumstance, you become reactive. You move when things feel right. You stop when things feel uncertain. And over time, you lose direction. Because your foundation is unstable. You are not anchored. You are adjusting constantly. So be careful. Not every vision that makes sense is meant to be followed. Because if it depends entirely on everything going right around you, it will not hold. And you will spend more time adjusting than actually building. 6. Dreams that replace truth with personal interpretation. This is the most dangerous one. Because it feels spiritual. You have a dream. You interpret it. You assign meaning to it. And that meaning becomes your direction. But here's the problem. Your interpretation is not always accurate. And when you treat it like truth, you begin to build on something unstable. Because interpretation, without grounding, leads to distortion. You start connecting things that were never connected. You start assigning meaning that was never there. You begin to see patterns that confirm what you want to believe. And slowly, your direction becomes shaped by your own assumptions, not by truth. This is where many people get misled. Not because they had a dream, but because they trusted their interpretation of it, without testing it, without grounding it, without questioning it. And once that interpretation becomes fixed, it becomes difficult to correct, because now it feels personal. It feels meaningful. It feels like something you received, but if it's not aligned with truth, it will lead you away from it. This is why discernment matters, because not every meaning you assign is accurate, and not every conclusion you reach is correct. So do not build your life on personal interpretation alone, because what feels right in your mind may not be right in reality, and once you start acting on it, the consequences follow. Now you see the pattern. Not every dream is guidance, not every vision is direction, and not everything that feels spiritual is meant to be followed. Dreams that contradict truth, dreams that feed your ego, dreams that rush you without clarity, dreams that pull you off course, dreams that depend on unstable conditions, dreams that rely on your own interpretation. This is not random. This is how misdirection happens. Quietly, convincingly, and often sincerely. Because you don't have to be rebellious to be misled. You just have to be undiscerning. This is where most people get trapped. They don't reject the dream. They build on it. They think about it constantly. They start adjusting their decisions. They begin moving in a direction that felt right in the moment. And at first, nothing feels wrong. In fact, it feels exciting, meaningful, purposeful, even spiritual. But over time, something starts to shift. Confusion increases, clarity fades, peace becomes inconsistent, and they don't understand why, because they assume the starting point was valid. But if the starting point was off, everything built on it will eventually reflect that. This is why discernment matters at the beginning, not after you've already committed. Because once you start building your life around something, it becomes harder to step back, harder to question it, harder to admit that it may not have been right. So instead of correcting, many people double down. They push forward. They ignore warning signs. They continue investing in something that was never meant to guide them. And eventually, they feel lost, not because they lack direction, but because they followed the wrong one. You cannot treat every dream as instruction. This is where correction is needed. Because many people treat dreams like commands, like every vision must be acted on, every impression must be followed. But that's not how it works. Some things are meant to be ignored, some things are meant to be tested, and some things are meant to be rejected completely if you remove that filter. You open yourself to confusion, because now everything feels important, everything feels urgent, everything feels meaningful. And when everything feels meaningful, you lose the ability to prioritize, you lose clarity, you lose direction, because you're trying to follow too many signals. This is not alignment, this is overload, so you need a standard, a clear one, something that allows you to say, this aligns, this doesn't, this needs to be ignored. Without that, you will keep moving without stability. Stop chasing, start testing. This is the shift, not emotional reaction, intentional evaluation. Because you don't need to chase every dream, you need to test it, slowly, carefully, without pressure. That means asking, does this align with truth? Does this produce clarity or confusion? Does this lead to discipline or distraction? Does this require me to abandon what I already know is right? If the answer is unclear, do not move. If the answer contradicts truth, reject it. If the answer creates pressure, pause, because real direction does not collapse under examination. It becomes clearer, more stable, more consistent. So stop reacting to what you feel in the moment and start evaluating what is actually in front of you. You need to protect your direction. Your direction is not something casual. It determines where you end up, what you build, what you become, what your life reflects over time. And if your direction is influenced by unstable inputs, your outcome will reflect that. So protection is necessary, not fear. Protection. That means not entertaining every idea, not giving attention to every impression, not assigning meaning too quickly, because attention is what gives things power. And if you give attention to the wrong things, they begin to influence you. So be selective. Not everything deserves your focus. Not everything deserves your energy. And not everything deserves to be followed. Final warning. If you ignore this, you won't immediately see the damage. That's what makes it dangerous. It will feel normal, gradual, even productive, until one day You realize you've been moving but not progressing. You've been active but not aligned. You've been chasing but not building. And by then, you've invested time, energy, and decisions into something that was never meant to guide you. That's the cost. Not just confusion, but misused time. And time is not something you recover easily. Final instruction. So don't overcomplicate this. If a dream contradicts what is already clear, feeds your ego instead of humility, creates pressure without clarity, pulls you away from what is established, depends on unstable conditions, relies only on your interpretation, do not chase it, not quickly, not emotionally, not blindly. Do not allow it to become your direction, because your life is too valuable to be shaped by something you never tested. You don't need more dreams. You need discernment, and discernment begins when you stop chasing everything and start choosing carefully what you follow.